What does it mean to carry earned authority in the very rooms that once silenced you, and how do you steward that power with humility?
So what that means for me is responsibility. It means responsibility because now I have become that point person, that example for many people who are now in my shoes. And I was there. I was there where they were at, right? And they're looking at me as the example, right? It's a lot of responsibility because now I'm setting a standard. I'm providing hope. Like you said, a roadmap. Okay, so you were in my shoes. I see you now coming in here. You have a family. You're doing this. I want to follow your example, right? And how do I stay humble? Never forget where you come from, right? Where God took you out. And it really helps me out to go back. You know, now I see how God has given me purpose. He's given me skills, gifts, the passion, the drive. And it all matters, what do you do with all that, with all those tools?
Yeah.
Right? And as God starts using you, as I'm seeing that what God has, because I had nothing, man. You start from zero, God picks you up, and that attitude of thankfulness, I constantly maintain it. It keeps me humble, being thankful. When I go back to prison, God reminds me every single day, I took you out to bring you back and take more people out.
Next level, we're reaching for the sky. Next level thinkers, we're aiming high.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. He didn't grow up with a blueprint, just noise, chaos, and survival disguised as identity. But somewhere between silence and surrender, David Flores found the raw material to rebuild. Not a comeback, a redefinition. Forgiveness became the first brick. Discipline followed. Then came the kind of clarity only a sober mind can bring. Today, he walks back through the same prison gates, not in chains, but in calling. Not to revisit who he was, but to remind others of who they still can become. He doesn't lead from theory, he leads from fire, from scars, from grace, with consistency and character and competence. Held by his family, anchored in surrender to God. This kind of work is the kind of work of brilliance. Not the kind you inherit, but the kind you forge. You're listening to the Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast, and today we chart what no system ever planned for. A man who became the map. David Flores, Mr. Flores, man. It's awesome to have you on Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. We're well acquainted. We know each other from PEP. We got to give them a shout out right off the bat. Yeah, and I've seen you in action. I've seen the spirit you emote behind the Estes unit as you're navigating this program, helping the inmates learn how to become entrepreneurs and develop core competencies that will help them evolve in life as they transition out of incarceration. And as I am a participant, executive volunteer in the program, I get to admire the work of the people that are actually running the facility, running the program, and man, I would be remiss if I didn't say your shine shines brightly, and the spiritual and the spiritual essence of who you are resonates powerfully. Every time I've been there, so I said, man, I got to get Mr. David Flores on the program, man, and it's a pleasure to have you here today.
No, and I'm blessed just to be invited. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. In the intro, did I miss anything? No? All right, because I just want to make sure. Did I sound okay? Did it sound okay?
You sound good, bro.
Oh, man, awesome, man. I'm so happy that you're here. But let's start off. Let's rewind a little bit, okay? Before the chaos that I mentioned, and before the choices, before the consequences, what was young David dreaming about? What version of you existed before survival became a skill?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know who I wanted to be or where I was going. Growing up in chaotic household, no issues here and there, family, I was just trying to do something. I found my identity, I guess, at that point, trying to deal with the issues I had going on, and I found my identity just with my friends. So, I mean, at one point, I will say that, you know, when they ask that question, who do you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. At one point I was thinking I wanted to be a teacher, and at one point a police officer.
Oh, wow.
But as we continue going on this conversation, you know, as I made mistakes, I felt, man, well, I can't be a teacher. And for sure I can't be a police officer, so.
Yeah. That's I talk about chaos, and we talked about chaos a little bit. What was chaos? What was the chaos that you were enduring at the time when you were young? When you were younger?
Well, you know, my dad, he had another family, right? So my dad wasn't in my home every single day. A lot of fighting between my mom and dad, you know, for many years. We did not have a lot of resources to count on for financial assistance. You know, so we had a very I had a humble upbringing, but just in the midst of chaos, you don't have a lot of things. You know, it just trying to find yourself and trying to cope with it. You don't know as a kid growing up, so, you know, I resorted to a lot of things that didn't help out.
Yeah, like what specifically? What did you?
Well, I think I was by 13, 14 years old. I started smoking weed and doing other drugs, selling drugs at 14 already. You know, first time I got in trouble at 14, I went to alternative school. Then after that, I continued messing up, and first time I experienced being locked up, incarcerated, 14 years old.
Yeah, your incarceration at 14 years old. What kind of always first let me say before we go down this road, you know, I want to make sure, you know, I want to always say that everyone's suffering is sacred. Every struggle that people face in their life, whatever time it is, whatever age they are, is very I call it very sacred place, you know, and it's a alone time with God, I would say, that you're trying to realize. So I want to walk through this as far as you want to walk and wherever you feel comfortable going. Okay,
yeah, it's awesome.
Being 14 years old, what emotions, if you want to reflect back to that time, how did you feel? What was going through your mind?
I had a lot of anger. I look back and I'm embarrassed about the things I did. At 14, I was that kid that, because of anger, I didn't know how to channel that anger or that stress, and I would hit the walls, make holes. I remember my mom, you know, getting after me, and I would just cover those holes on the walls with frames. Because of the depression, I look back also, and I now recognize that I was going through depression. And so my way of escaping that is drugs and being with my group of friends, doing things we're not supposed to. At 14, I got an overdose. I had an overdose. I took 12 pills, and that just showed me that, you know, looking back, that I was just trying to cope with the stress.
Yeah.
Just not understanding why, you know, my household, my mom and dad, I was arguing, and not understanding why my dad can't be there every single day. And yeah, it just created an environment in which it was hectic every single day.
Yeah. Would you say before you were actually in a physical prison, you were like in a mental, spiritual, and emotional prison?
Yes, I would say I was. You know, because what is prison? Prison is, well, one thing about prison is that your freedom is taken away, right? And you can't do everything you want to do. And that's the way I felt. I wanted to do certain things, but I couldn't because I had a restriction because of the things that I was going through. And that's the way I felt. I felt I couldn't do really what I wanted to do or be. If I wanted to be something, I couldn't be it to the fullest degree.
Yeah, probably like mental, emotional roadblocks that you didn't know how to tear down. Is that more accurate? Maybe?
I would say so. Yeah, because limitations, right? Well, first off, if you don't have an example to look up to, like, okay, this is what I can be, well, then you don't even know how those limitations look like. And I was putting limitations that were probably not there, but they're created because of what I don't have, and I don't have an example.
Yeah.
So I resorted to looking at other people or the people on the TV screen, and I said, well, I want to be like that.
Yeah. Do you think it was it was easier at that time to be angry than happy?
Yeah. You know, I remember I had my neighbor 2 houses down, and she would always be smiling. She would come around and say hi to my mom, right, and to us, and she would always be smiling, and I was about 8 years old. And I remember that it would make me very angry. I did not like the fact that she was always happy. She always had a smile. I realize now that I did not like for her to be happy because I wasn't happy. And I wanted to experience that.
What was her name? Or is
Juanita.
Juanita? Was she still around? Or?
Yeah, she actually was a catalyst for my growth.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, she spoke, when I was going through all that chaos, she spoke to me, she gave me hope. She was a voice that reminded me, even though you're going through all of this, God has a plan for you. Don't you forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I could resonate with what you're saying. With, you know, it's easier to be angry than to be happy, right? Or just to be. How much of that is like, you know, would you consider yourself malnourished, like either more emotionally, spiritually, malnourished in some way?
Yeah, I do. I have compassion for my mom and my dad now, right? I'm in a different place, but I do recognize that culturally, you know, with the Hispanic family and the way my mom and dad were raised, we're not so touchy, so emotional with each other. And so as far as receiving hugs and the I love yous and hey, great job, good job, it just wasn't common.
Yeah.
They didn't have that experience neither. So I think that the small nourishment.
Yeah.
I see that now. I'm different now with my kids, but yeah, I would say we were malnourished.
When you look at it now, you look at hindsight 2020. Like, you know, you say if you had the perfect parents you ever wanted, right? Would you be the man you are today? And when I pose that question, it's like when you look at your parents, right? Do you think that they were going through their own interpersonal problems?
Oh,
and
yeah.
that may have been contributing factor?
Oh yeah, and I thank God because I've been able to have conversations with my dad, my mom, and I realized that while I was going through what I was going through, they had their own demons that they had to conquer and their struggles, and it opened me up to forgive, because sometimes in our world we're the victim, right? And I realize now that there were victims in their own respect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Like you go back and you're like, you reflect on you saying, well, there's some compassion with regards to how they live their life. Every reconstruction begins somewhere. What was the first truth you laid down as a foundation, and how did you know it was strong enough to build a future on?
So for me, it has to be forgiveness. It has to be forgiveness. First, it took a lot for me to just believe that God forgave me. You know, I've made a lot of bad decisions. I've hurt people. I've done a lot of bad things. And it was just difficult for me to believe that I was forgiven, because if I didn't receive God's forgiveness, then I would not feel empowered or even have the right, or feel I have the right to help somebody else out, or to have a better future.
Yeah.
And then not only to be forgiven by God, but also to forgive the people that hurt me.
Yeah. Their shortcomings are when you look at them now, are they shortcomings, like the people that you had to forgive? Like, or were there some intentional, like, you know, malicious experiences that you felt like were very
I would say both.
Okay.
I would say for some people, they were not intentional, just things happen. For some people, it were intentional. But even then, for those that were intentional, I look back in my life and I was trying to sort out the things within my life. And I'm not saying I'm justified or anyone's justified when you're intentional. That's not right.
Yeah.
But I do have the compassion in the sense that I now realize that many times when I did things that were not right, the root behind all that, it was with hurt, anger, and now I see those people that were intentionally wanting to cause hurt. They were trying to sort what they had going on too.
Yeah.
Right? So I forgive them.
Yeah. What I say, maybe you didn't have enough tools in your toolbox on how to handle situations. Is that part of it, you think?
Yeah, and
And what would be those kind of tools that you would think?
well, going back to what I said earlier, having an example. You know, being in the type of life that I was involved, the gang life, we would do things that were intentional.
Yeah.
But look at the people we're looking up to. I put all my energy just like they did, their thoughts, their values. Everybody has values, it just depends what values. And we apply them in this system of, you know, a gang and justified by the way we do things, that we do it for us and we're a group of fellow brothers. And so, man, just having an example, a good example, having someone to show you and tell you that's not the way you do things, that in itself is, I don't know if you can call it a tool, but that's one thing you need in your toolbox, to have examples you can look and say, hey, in this situation, I'm gonna handle it like this because I had somebody and I saw the way he handled it and it was the right way.
When we think of gang life, how much of that is tribal? Like, you know, you're Hispanic guy, you know, I'm a Hispanic guy. And how much do you think is tribal, and what do you think pulls people to join a gang?
Man, it's definitely tribal.
Yeah.
You know, in the streets and especially in prison, you know, you got the blacks, the whites, the Hispanics, and then within the Hispanics, there's other groups, subgroups. What drove me to become a gang member? Well, my surroundings growing up, I had people around me, family members, that already had that lifestyle. Again, I looked up to them. But also, as I was trying to find my identity and just wanted to belong, wanted to be accepted, to give an opportunity to shine. I saw that it's crazy, but I saw it, okay, so this is me, this is my future. I'm in prison, I got with the gang, I belong, we stand for something, right? And I would say, yeah, it's definitely tribal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think of it now, like, how much of it is pride? Like you have pride in your tribe, but in your pride, you know, how much of it do you think pride plays a contributing factor of joining a gang or a tribe?
I think it plays a major factor, especially, again, if you don't have something to look up to, you don't have no sense of belonging. You want to be prideful about something and say, I'm a part of something.
Yeah.
So I remember being with my homeboys, and you had that sense of pride, or even if it's just you're representing the block or you're representing, you know, your city, that pride that I'm with we share something in common and we're all willing to stand for what we believe in, for this is what we share in common, an idea, right?
Yeah. It's like being a Spurs fan or somebody, you know.
Yeah.
Like, but it's
or Cowboys. Don't forget the Cowboys. You better not say nothing about the Cowboys, right?
Yeah. Okay, so pressure doesn't just crush, it reveals. In what ways did incarceration and being in a prison gang, refine your character rather than erase it?
Well, let me share this. When I was incarcerated, I had the time to reflect with a sober mind. And I'm not just talking about, okay, I'm not doing drugs, because at one point I was, you know, doing drugs in prison. I'm talking about also just being sober-minded with, you're gonna start recognizing, okay, this is the choices I've made. These are the consequences. And it was very hard for me just to finally look at myself and realize that I did a lot of bad things. I started receiving conviction with a sober mind. And that's really what I needed to realize, okay, this is what I've done. This is what I've been doing. This is where I'm at because of what I've done. And it caused me to start making changes. And so the discipline of coming up with a plan and saying, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm gonna get this done, and just executing. You know, I started reading, I had my experience with God, and that's when I surrendered, and I started reinventing myself.
That's awesome, man. You hear the saying, everybody who goes to prison finds God. Well, what about that? Like, what is that true? I mean, what truth can you speak to that? And is it just a cliche, or some people say they just find God because they're in a situation?
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, look, I mean, it just like outside here in the world, right? There's people that say that they know God, follow God, but just a bunch of talk. Same thing in prison.
Yeah.
For me, I went to prison 3 times. Okay, so, and I wasn't raised, in a Christian home or nothing like that, but I knew that there was a God. I knew he didn't mess around. That's the way I saw God, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to prison this 3 times, it wasn't until the 3rd time I surrendered, and I had an experience with God. I had not just heard about God, but now I experienced God. I was facing 25 years. My 3rd time to prison, 4th DWI pending, accident involving injury, 3 counts, aside from that. And there's no, I'm gonna do a lot of time. And so I did what I never had done before. I humbled myself, and I prayed to God, and I made a request. I said, God, show me mercy. I know that I don't deserve it, but just give me 5 years this time. 5 years, which is the lowest they can give me, right? And I'll serve you. And so when I was going to court, after court date, the lowest that the judge got to was 11 years, then they went back to 25. And so when I went to that last court, they said, you have to sign this is it. They gave me a 5.
Wow.
And so that for me, which I know was God told me, okay, I did my part. What you gonna do now?
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I always say that there's this, fall on your knees to God moment, right? Like, there's a guy I know that his name's Paul Slough. He was a special ops guy, and he was with Blackwater, a whole thing, right, a military thing, and they had an incident happen. Some actions were made, and there was some, they took actions, and then what ended up happening is the government flipped it on him, and then they gave him 34 years, right? Yeah, and it was so. Long story short, he was sharing a story where he had this come to Jesus, or this not come to Jesus. Let's say fall on you. He fell on his knees. And ask why me, right? Did you ever have one of those?
Why me in the sense of, why did this happen to me?
Yeah. Or some version of that?
I would say some version. In my personality, I look back when I was a kid and growing up and feeling alone for the most of my time. And I just was like, I've always had a personality, like I just deal with things. Like whatever happens, I go with the flow and I do what I can. And it's been built within me. So when I was going through the things I was going through, I never asked God why, but I would ask God, why? Well, what's your purpose? What's your purpose with all this, right? And what's gonna result from all of this, right? Going through the things I went through as a boy, and then having to deal with the consequences because of my mistakes, and really not having faith and hope, no hope. I would ask God, are you gonna do something though? Do you have something for me that not just it's gonna be just going with the flow type of deal? Like,
Yeah.
you really are you gonna put me on something with purpose, with a plan? And are you gonna give me another opportunity to do something, to be somebody? Because I don't even know who I'm supposed to be,
Yeah.
right? And I guess the why would be, well, what's your purpose really?
Yeah.
Okay, why are you doing this? Okay, I'm not gonna ask you why, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's powerful, man. It's like, what are you gonna, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
You know, when you get to those knees and you're like, God, just show me a purpose, guide me down this road. Well, let's go down this road, because now you've gone through through your personal prison, mental, spiritual, physical prison, and you've transcended your experience. And that was part of the reason why I wanted you on Next Level Thinkers, charting new horizons of brilliance. It means you're charting new horizons of brilliance, and not only yourself, but the people that are around you are benefiting from the pathway that you're created for yourself, and you're creating that for others. So I thought it was very unique that I wanted to get pull out the things that helped you take the next step. And it sounds like some of the steps you've made were foundational ones. You said forgiveness, and you've talked about asking what's my purpose, and these things. So the next question I have for you is, well, now you lead in spaces where you once fought simply to survive, which is prison, right? What does it mean to carry earned authority in the very rooms that once silenced you, and how do you steward that power with humility?
So what that means for me is responsibility. It means responsibility because now I have become that point person, that example for many people who are now in my shoes. And I was there. I was there where they were at, right? And they're looking at me as the example, right? It's a lot of responsibility because now I'm setting a standard. I'm providing hope. Like you said, a roadmap, okay? So you were in my shoes. I see you now coming in here. You have a family. You're doing this. I want to follow your example, right? And how do I stay humble? Never forget where you come from, right? Where God took you out. And it really helps me out to go back. Now I see how God has given me purpose. He's given me skills, gifts, the passion, the drive. And it all matters, what do you do with all that, with all those tools?
Yeah.
Right? And as God starts using you, as I'm seeing that what God has, because I had nothing, man. You start from zero, God picks you up, and that attitude of thankfulness, I constantly maintain it. Keeps me humble, being thankful. When I go back to prison, God reminds me every single day, I took you out to bring you back and take more people out. And I'm just grateful. It helps me out being inside because, again, I start seeing myself being used and helping people. You can forget where God took you from, and you can think it's all you. But honestly, it's God gave me the opportunity. God gave me the hope. This is not my narrative. This is His narrative, and I just needed to find out, where do I fit in your story?
Yeah.
Before
we talked about us. When we were talking earlier, I said every suffering is sacred. It's like a treasure. Someone, if you share your story with me, or I share my story with you, it's like this sacred treasure that has, like, you open it up, and there's like all these, like, gold. Like, is a wow. Do you feel like that when you exchange with the guys that are in the PEP program? That when they sit down and talk with you and they open their heart, let's say the heart treasure, and they share their own struggles and sufferings. What kind of experience do you get from that?
So, as iron sharpens iron, right? The man sharpens the countenance of his friend. It's mutual. The guys that are in prison, they got skills. They have skills. They've had professions too. They have a lot to give. So it's not like, oh, you're in prison, you don't have anything, you're not smart, or no. I meet a lot of people in prison that by their experiences, I'm also sharpened too.
Yeah.
And when they start opening up and we make that connection, right, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because in the same process as they're being edified by me, I'm being edified by them.
Giving them that, I think that's awesome, man. Like you know, when you're sitting down talking with them, and you know that earned authority. Do you think that goes a lot further than, let's say, academic authority?
Oh yeah. You know, there's spheres of influence and authority, and it all works together. But the fact being that I was there, I'm out, I'm helping people, I'm going back, and people respect that.
Yeah.
You know, they see me and everybody else is part of the staff who we've been in prison. Okay, I'll listen to you because you've been where I'm at.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, they're more receptive. And then it helps me out too, based on my experiences, right? That I can see through and discern through, you know, through the shenanigans or whatever you want to call it, like when they're, and so I earned their respect too. I just cut through it like, hey man, let's talk. Like, you're saying all this, but you're not really meaning it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Who gave you your first chance? Like you said, I don't know if your first chance or second. I don't know what you call it. Who gave you your first break? You know, the breakthrough, and say, or this one opportunity. We'll call it opportunity. Who gave you your first opportunity to get involved in organizations and get involved with those incarcerated in PEP? And how did it? Just give me a little snapshot on what that looked like.
So
how'd you feel?
Yeah, it felt good. So when I'm about to serve my last year, right, my last sentence, and I am sent to Estes unit. Mm-hmm. And I was just happy to get out of the unit I was before. Beto is really bad. So I get to Estes unit, and I've always wanted to be in a faith-based dorm, but because my gang affiliation, I was confirmed, they didn't allow me in the other units. So that's my plan. I want to get into faith-based, but I find out that PEP's there. Well, crazy thing about it, I denied PEP in my first year of this incarceration I'm talking about, my last one. And I really believe it wasn't the season of God. It wasn't time, but I denied it. So when I get to the Estes unit and I find out PEP is available, I shoot my shot. I asked to see if I can be either, and I prayed to God. I said, I'm going to try to be in the faith-based dorm or in PEP. You tell me what you want me to do, God. When I inquire about PEP, a week afterwards, I moved to a PEP dorm. So I start the program. When I finished it, the in-prison manager got me housel at that time, and then some guys that were already peer educators, the leaders in the front, right? They asked me if I wanted to be a leader, peer educator. And so they gave me a chance to really hone my skills to oversee the program along with the other peer educators, spend time with the guys, and that was my first time, and it felt good.
Yeah.
I felt, okay, they believe in me, they see something in me, and they're giving me an opportunity to exercise and hone my skills. Yeah.
Was that while you were incarcerated?
Yes, while I was incarcerated.
And then what happened after you got out? How did that relationship keep growing?
So, and it's all about what I did then, right? You reap what you sow. So as I maintained my testimony and worked hard in there, when I was released, I took the opportunity to come to Dallas, left everything behind, and I went to transitional house with PEP, starting from scratch. And 3 months in, I'm released and I'm trying to get a job, embracing the struggle. A case manager, Jason Moore, good friend of mine to this day, and he reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to apply for a case manager. I was the least qualified. You know, PEP believes in hiring people who have been in prison before, but they have guidelines too, right? And you have to be out for a certain amount of time. They made an exception with me, just give me a shot. They didn't promise they were gonna give me the job, but they gave me an opportunity. The people I was going against, right, to get the job, I was the least qualified, but I got the job. They gave me an opportunity, and that was my stepping stone.
That's
and it felt great.
That's awesome, man. It seems like having people believe in you is the first most important criteria that you need to that'll help you like see yourself differently.
It took someone to see in me what I didn't see in myself. The things that people would say about me, like, you can do this, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I had to finally come in agreement with what God was saying about me. No, this is who you are, identity.
Yeah.
This is who you are.
This is awesome, man. Yeah, I like that fact that, it's like going back to why I says I get you on this program is because you found a way out of no way, and you listen to the small still voice of God, or and intuitively thought, hey, I want to go try this program out after rejecting it the first time. It just like it kind of highlights that you're on this very purpose-driven pathway.
Yep.
Purpose-driven pathway. We need to patent that.
Yeah.
But purpose-driven pathway, and that's what Charting New Horizons. That's where Brilliance is. New Horizons of Brilliance is manifested. Transformation is a process, right? But trust is a verdict. What did it take to become not only teachable but trustworthy enough to teach others?
So I had to be humble, right? To be teachable. And I had to come to a place to realize that I don't know nothing. I need someone to teach me, someone to show me. And after that, I've realized that in order to be good at something, of course, you need to have your skills right, get better at your skills, but it's just being consistent. Day in, day out, making sure you're taking care of your business, right? And I think about that, sometimes you wake up, you don't feel like getting up and going to work. You have problems going on at home, but that duty, that responsibility, there's people's lives at stake.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, that means that probably somebody may not have been able to receive the word that God gave you to give to them, or that inspiration. For example, in PEP, for a lot of guys, they need to see that consistency, that you can be dependable, so that they can believe they can be dependable, and that they need to be dependable. And that means showing up every single day,
Yeah, showing up, right? That's the first thing. It's got to be present to win.
Yeah.
You got to keep being present, and that's a big thing. Let's see here. Your work with Prison Entrepreneurship Program doesn't just restore potential; it multiplies it. I've seen it firsthand. Being an executive volunteer, it multiplies that potential. How has serving others become a catalyst for expanding your own capacity to lead, heal, and elevate brilliance behind the walls?
Good question. So the need to constantly be learning to get better in what you do. The multiplication factor, right? Our God is a God that multiplies, right? And it's a God that gives us purpose, but also He gives us work. So when I go inside in every sphere, right, PEP and ministry that I'm doing, I'm always thinking about that factor, the multiplication, right? I want to multiply leaders. I want to send out people to be leaders in their families, organizations, etc. And in order to be effective in that, I always have to be making sure that I'm learning new things. I'm becoming a better leader. And it's not like a limitation, okay, that's it, I already know everything. No, you got to keep on growing. Being faithful in the small things, He'll make you rule over many things. Well, are you going to be prepared to be faithful in the bigger things? That when you get called to bigger things, you got to move on to bigger things. You got to get prepared in a bigger way. So that constant just leadership development.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what you with PEP? What do you do with PEP? What's your job title there, and what does that look like?
I'm the character development specialist. I deal with the leadership there and making sure that we're working together. The leadership curriculum, I facilitate Better Man, and we got a lot of other curriculum that falls under that.
What is Better
character
Man?
development.
Can you break that down a little bit more?
So Better Man, basically, it's a curriculum that shows our guys how to be men, how to be a faithful husband, make a difference in the community. It addresses also the need to face your past, identify the roots of why you do what you do, and all based on the example of Christ. Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
it's good stuff.
And what other things you were mentioning something outside of the Better Man? Is there another thing you're part of as well?
Yeah, so outside from PEP, I'm blessed to facilitate outside and inside the unit trauma healing.
Yeah.
With the Trauma Healing Institute, and basically it's based on psychological principles, but the foundation is biblical, and it's just helping our guys address the trauma in their lives. And I've come to realize that nearly everybody has some type of trauma, right? Not everything's trauma, and I've realized that, as some people often said, hurt people hurt people. Healed people heal others too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool, man. I like that part, the trauma part, where you're confronting other people's trauma, and how often do you when you hear something? Yeah, you've been doing this for how long now? For several years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many years?
So with the PEP or just everything in general?
Everything in general.
I'd say about 8 years and a half, but I will say I would like to include the time I served in my 5 years, because, man, I was already...
That's deep.
I was...
That's where you're in the jungle.
Yeah, I was still serving God, and people getting out of their gangs, right? And then coming to me for help, and I'm stuck in the middle, and... But since I'm 8 years and a half, serving ministry, PEP, trauma healing, chaplain, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's an important aspect too, because you're like in the jungle, with your tribe, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to find a way to the river. You know what I'm saying? Trying to figure out where can we get some food, or where we can get that nourishment, right?
Yeah.
And you found a way. You persevered through the walls and through all the obstacles, the social obstacles, all the nuances of being incarcerated to see the horizon, to see there's where the sun is shining, that's that North Star I need to go towards, and that's that's probably one of the most important things right there, because you were in it, So that's very cool, man. And of course, this show is about charting new horizons of brilliance. What does that phrase mean? Not as a concept, but as a living reality shaped by scars, grace, and calling. Charting new horizons of brilliance.
So what does that mean for me? Well, first off is you as a leader being able to see the horizon and point to the horizon, right? And once you see it, well then the roadmap, right? And then pointing at it and helping others get to that horizon too. What it means to me living this out, I go back again with purpose, right? Knowing that all the things I've been through, bad or good, they serve God's purpose for my life. I know a question that we often ask each other is, do you regret going through what you went through? It didn't feel good, but I know that those things had to happen to make me who I am today. And to be able to help other people in similar situations. So it just means for me an opportunity to help other people.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome, man. It's so true. Like like the part where you say you got to be able to see the horizon.
Yeah.
If you can't see the horizon, you ain't there yet.
Yeah.
You're like you're back. You're facing the other way. Like but if you can see it, they say see, believe, achieve, or whatever, but at the same time, it's like you got to see it, and you have to have the willingness to walk that direction, right? I had a person tell me a long time ago, and she's like, Rush, you can put your feet together, you're going to have a hammer in one hand and a nail, and you can nail his feet down. You can grab that nail and hold it with his other hand, and you can nail it in this hand. but will you hand the other hammer to somebody else so they can nail your other hand down? And basically I was like, but when it's time to hand that nail and hammer to somebody else, will you let them, or are you going to fight them with that one arm you have, you know? And I think that's the biggest part is as we look through that, how many spiritual, mental, emotional demons do you face going down that path? And when you look at it now in hindsight 2020 and you see like, man, I went through that jungle. How many do you think you're like, man, how many demons do you think you confronted along the way? And what was your biggest one? What was your biggest one that you would like to?
And I know, figuratively speaking, but also literally, like, man, it's real, like the spiritual implication with it too. But I would say, man, you know what? God has recently been dealing with me with this, and I said this earlier, is just coming to agreement to what He has said about me. Again, the enemy will try to keep you living in the past and get you to not believe what God has said over your life. When God said, I mentioned earlier, one of the dreams I had is I want to be a teacher, right?
Yeah.
And when I went to prison and all that, you know, it was that dream. That's just a little fairy tale, right?
Yeah.
I heard everybody else say, I said it too. Well, God was telling me, you are a teacher. I'm like, what do you mean? You are a teacher. It's just, you thought you were going to be a teacher teaching math or reading. You're a teacher of my word. And I am a teacher.
Yeah.
Teach the youth pastor, you know, teach the curriculum, this and that. And one of the biggest demons I've had to face is that demon of disbelief. Of not believing that God has called me to do great things. That God has called me to be a leader in spite of all of my decisions I did in the past. And in spite of the consequences, because you have to be accountable, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be consequences. And it is what it is. But those consequences, if God has something for your life, those consequences are not going to stop the purpose of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true, man. That is so important, man. I think the spirit of disbelief, we talked about it off camera when I didn't believe in the things, even when God's like, well, look at you, I just got you, I just send you around the world, other things you don't know about. But I'm just like, in my mind, it's that spirit of disbelief, man. And so that is, well, you're here on a podcast called Next Level Thinkers. You're not here by accident. You're not here by accident, man. And and you're charting new horizons of brilliance every single day. You show up. Let's see here. Do you ever miss anything about the version of yourself who didn't know better?
So I was spontaneous. My old version, right, was spontaneous. I acted before I thought, right? And now I do see that I'm intentional, I plan, I think about things and how I'm going to do it. I do see that sometimes, though, you have to be spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
Some situations will call for that. So I would say the way I did things before, I'm learning sometimes to sometimes there's no time to think, you have to act.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Perhaps maybe miss that, but I'm learning how to do that when I have to.
Yeah, I get what you're putting down, man. Let's see here. Let's see. Who holds you accountable now? Not just to stay clean, but to stay called.
Well, I remind myself that what I've been called to do comes from God, right? And it's about God, not me, not to be self-centered. So my first accountability will be through my relationship with God, right? His word, the roadmap for me, but my family.
Yeah.
My family, the closest to me who know me. I can shine on the outside, but when I come back, my wife reminds me, hey, you're my husband. You need to also, let's go clean the dishes or something, right? Keeps me humble, level-headed, but she holds me accountable, my wife, and I thank God for her life. My family, my kids. Like, it's been something that God has dealt with me, and I'm learning to do this in a better way. is to make sure that as I'm leading other people on the outside, I have to make sure I lead my family first. They hold me accountable.
Yeah.
To my purpose, to my calling, to my priorities.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Okay, last question. For the person listening who feels trapped in a cell without bars, what's the first courageous step they can take to begin charting their own horizon of brilliance?
Take accountability. Take accountability for the mistakes, the bad decisions. Take accountability. It starts there. I know that we all been through some things, but it doesn't justify us, right? We made mistakes.
Yeah.
As soon as we hold ourselves accountable, then that's where we can start that change. So accountability and hope. Just know that there's hope. The worst thing you can do is have no hope. You can be in prison but still have hope. Be outside of prison and have no hope, and you're still locked up.
Yeah.
You're still incarcerated. So accountability and have hope and surrender. What helped me be the person I am today and to believe is my surrender to God. I wanted to keep control. And that's the hardest thing for many of us, is to release that control.
Give the hammer to somebody else.
Get the hammer to somebody else.
Hey. Hammer to nail you down.
Yeah, help me out.
It's true, man. Like, release that, get that hand, give me your arm, let's go. We're gonna nail you down. No, man, this is a great conversation to have with you today. With every guest I do this, I say, hey, give a shout out to someone, whoever you want, to give them some love and appreciation, or some encouragement. Give somebody or some people, whoever you want.
Yeah, so babe, my wife, Pearl Flores, thank you for just being there with me and believing in me. And shout out to my pastors, who they have become, my church, the family, and thank y'all for the mentoring and for just believing in me, and of course, above all, thank God, in Jesus' name.
Amen. Who's that person that got Jay? Would you say Jay? The person person in PEP that got you into the program?
Oh yeah. Hey, Jason.
Jason.
Hey, yeah,
Jason,
got me hustle. Shout out to him when I was peer educator, and then I came back to work with him. And then Jason opening that door for case management, which now, hey, I'm here. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Hey, guys. Thank you, Jason, man. You rock solid dude, rock solid guy. It's an honor and a pleasure to sit with you today. I know firsthand, watching you activated, in action and high impact role. When I watch you out in action, I just have this great appreciation and admiration for you being on the front line, in the front and not in the back, mentoring and guiding these guys down a better path, and watching you evolve as a man, as a husband, as a man, and as a leader in this community, man. I really appreciate that. It is a horizon. You're on a horizon of brilliance, and I look forward to seeing where you go in the next few years, man.
And thank you for the opportunity.
I hope this podcast brings you.
Thank you for what you're doing too, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. All right, guys, that's it for Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. As I always say, have peace and light in you, and remember that the ocean refuses no river.
Next level, we're reaching for the sky. Next level thinkers, we're aiming high. Pushing through the galaxies, no turning back. We're on a mission, blazing a funky track.